What's up? Welcome in to Foxboro Rush. I'm George Balekji. He's Sean McGuire. We got a packed show for you guys over the next 45 minutes or so. Sean, how are we doing today, my man?
I'm great, George. Moving on to week 3.
Moving on to week 3, short week for the Patriots. They will face the Jets Thursday night in New York. Only primetime game of the year for the Pats. Welcome to the new world. Welcome basically to being a Panthers fan. That's what Patriots fans should feel like. And we'll get into that Panthers talk with Bryce Young and what this could mean for New England. But let's start with the big news of the week, Sean. We saw Ja'Whaun Bentley leave the Seahawks loss in the first quarter, was ruled out of the game, came out, it was a torn pec. And the reporting on this one was interesting, where Jeremy Fowler early in the day on Monday said, you know what? The fear isn't as bad. They're optimistic about his return. Then at night, Ian Rappaport putting out he's done for the season. Mike Reese of ESPN confirming Rappaport's reports. But then Mike Reese updating his report. And to me, when it comes to Patriot updates, when it comes to injuries, all that, Mike Reese is gospel because he's been covering this team forever. And he's so solid in all his reporting. This is from Reese. Ja'Whaun Bentley will be out long-term. Could be out for the rest of the season with a torn pec. So not for certain that he's done, but this is a huge loss for them, Sean. 3 straight seasons as a captain, 3 straight seasons with 100 or more tackles, 3 straight seasons of being the leader of this defense, and a guy that is young but is a thumper in the middle and so important to them stopping the run. Big cleats to fill on the field, on the sidelines, as a leader in the locker room is a huge loss, especially coming up on a Jets team that likes to run the ball. And then after New York, we all see what San Francisco has done through 2 weeks.
Yeah, tough loss. No doubt about it. It was rare when he wasn't on the field. He played 100% of snaps in week 1. I went back and looked at it from last year. He played 90% or more of snaps in all but 3 games, 98% or more in 11 of those games. Like you just mentioned, leading tackler each of the last 3 years, defensive communicator, relaying the signals, captain, all that sort of stuff. So his individual loss is huge. I also think, it just compounds in the fact that this spring, when we were looking at this defense, it had Christian Barmore. It had Matthew Judon. It obviously had Ja'Whaun Bentley. And now you're out all 3 of those players. Barmore, we've talked about a ton, dealing with blood clots, extended absence. Judon traded, obviously, talked about that a ton too. So I just think it's like another one of those, key pieces. And you look at it and, what's that? Like 3 of your top 5 or 6 defenders that you enter the year with. If we were talking about this team in May, those 3 guys you would probably rank them among the top 5 or 6 defenders on the team. And now to be out without all of them, it's a huge loss. A lot's going to fall on, Jelani Tavai, Raekwon McMillan, Christian Ellis, and Curtis Jacobs are on the 53-man as well. We'll see how other guys, Kyle Duggar and some other guys are impacted. But just, without a doubt, just with all that Ja'Whaun Bentley brings, again, not just on the field, but in terms of his communication, leadership, a huge loss for the Patriots.
Yeah, and this is tough on a short week. We see that Monday injury report come out. As of the recording of this podcast, Dietrich Wise, Jabril Peppers, Marcus Jones, Anthony Jennings, essential against the run, their best run defender on the edge, all listed as questionable on a short week, about to play a division opponent, one that you match up well and can beat because of how they can control the line of scrimmage with their defensive line against a more stagnant quarterback in the pocket, where we saw week 1, Joe Burrow, how he was never comfortable because he doesn't move that much in the pocket. He's on time, he's on schedule. He can make off-schedule throws and off-platform, but he'd rather be a pocket passer than Geno Smith, who extends plays. Well, Aaron Rodgers, at his age, recovering from what he is, that's better matchup for them quarterback-wise to control the pocket. But this is a team that's led by Breece Hall, is one of the best backs in the league. We saw Braylon Allen with his flashes in their Week 2 win against the Titans, and that's a Titans team with good defensive tackles to plug up the middle, skilled players at the second level of their defense. A lot to be desired, but this is a Jets team that wants to come in, wants to run the ball, and that is what they're going to make their bread and butter. That's what's tough with this loss. But you point out for Ja'Whaun Bentley, everything he's meant. He's played in 51 of the Patriots' last 53 regular season games. You cannot put into words how important that continuity is when it's on the field, a guy that wears a green dot. And we saw Kyle Duggar wearing the green dot in that loss to the Seahawks, something that Drake Maye said, well, Doug's done before. That's nothing new with Kyle Duggar. And he thinks he did a good job at it. But now that's an increased role for what he has to do. And we could see DeMarcus Covington get very, very creative. How do you use a Kyle Duggar? Obviously, 6'1", 215 doesn't replace 6'2", 245 in stopping the run like Ja'Whaun Bentley does. But that's a guy that's at his best when playing in the box, Sean. How do you use a Jabril Peppers? Same thing. A guy that wants to play downhill as a safety, plays physical, is a great run defender. How to use a Jelani Tavai, which they like to use as a Swiss Army knife, lining him out on the edge to be a pass rusher, but you'll need him more in the box. Short term, it's going to be on those three and how they fill it in, including a Raekwon McMillan, but he hasn't consistently been healthy, so I don't know how much you can depend on him. Then when week 5 rolls around, Sione Takitaki comes off the PUP. He's dealing with offseason knee injury, so he hasn't played yet. But again, Sione Takitaki, who was good for Cleveland, now in a new system, in a new place, it's going to take a while for him to get up to speed. This Ja'Whaun Bentley loss is big. I mean, he's great as a run defender. He's serviceable and good in coverage. He gets the job done, and he is a throwback linebacker, Sean. Like Ja'Whaun Bentley, the linebackers we grew up on. Now when we watch NFL Sundays, the best linebackers in the game is a Fred Warner, who's built like a Kyle Duggar. But he's the best. But Ja'Whaun Bentley has his role in this defense. And it's not just on the guys that are going to go in and fill that off-ball linebacker role and play calling, but a Devon Godshaw, a Daniel Ukawale. How do they step up? How do other guys along on this defense step up too to try and slow down this rushing attack that they'll be facing on top of the play calling? This is big. He's not a household name, but he's a household name in New England. He's not a household name nationally. But this is so significant for the Pats. And a leader and a great run defender, a guy that's consistently there. It's going to take multiple players to replace this. And a great point that you make, Sean. No Barmore, no Judon, now no Bentley. We'll see how healthy they are in the secondary and other spots on Thursday night. But you're losing 3 of your top 6, top 7 players. And that depends where you put in a Kyle Duggar, Christian Gonzalez, Jabril Peppers, and Keon White. But 3 of your top 7 defenders out, that's not good.
Yeah, and you kind of just touched on it too, but just to double down on it, I mean, I'm expecting Kyle Duggar is going to see a ton. And Keegan Stiefel also wrote about this on NESN.com, just how the Patriots are in a unique position to replace Bentley with Duggar. And it's, I have the quote from Gerard right here. I've always been a huge believer in a linebacker having a green dot, but I'll tell you the way Duggar played as a whole and being able to handle the communication, he definitely filled that role. And that was Gerard talking about how Kyle Duggar took over for the relaying of signals and all that sort of thing on Sunday. So we'll see. And I also want to point out, because I saw that this was in some comments on Keegan's story, that Ja'Whaun Bentley was in the game when Kyle Duggar and Christian Gonzalez kind of screwed up, miscommunicated that coverage for the DK Metcalf touchdown. But yeah, I think it's going to mean some more time in the box for Duggar. We'll see kind of what it means for him specifically. And I'm also you talk about the creativity and everything that DeMarcus Covington, might have to implement now. Jalen Hawkins, like how does guys in the secondary at this point, do they include another safety with Duggar in the box, or so kind of what goes into that on the back end too, in addition to how the defense looks in the front 7 without Bentley.
What's big too is how sure of a tackler Ja'Whaun Bentley is. And I think what was great about the Patriots in week 1 was just how polished they were there. How many hats to the ball. It's like the simplicity of football, and that's what they have to play with because they have a less talented roster, and they're aware of that. They have to be better conditioned. They have to be more disciplined. That's how they beat the Bengals. It's how they almost beat the Seahawks, but it was small missteps is what led to their undoing. Like miscommunicating and letting DK Metcalf run free down the left sideline for a 50-plus yard touchdown pass, which obviously mattered at the end of the conclusion of that game. You bring in a Jelani Tavai, good against a run, not as sure as a tackler. Kyle Duggar, not as good against a run. Good tackler, but not the same. Like there's this reliability you need, when you're calling plays, and that takes away a lot with them losing Ja'Whaun Bentley. So again, not the biggest name, but that is a huge loss. And this is a team that needs all hands on deck. I mean, Sean, let's look big picture here. Again, with this roster coming into this season, they lost City So in training camp. Cole Strange, we don't know when he'll play. I'm on offense right now. Kendrick Bourne starting the season on the PUP. Like those are 3 starters that they clearly need, especially for a receiving group that has 11 catches on the season. Then you go defensively. Barmore out indefinitely with blood clots, and I hope he's doing well. Matt Judon traded because you couldn't keep him in the locker room. He wasn't good for the culture. Then you get into all these question marks, and now Ja'Whaun Bentley out. This is a team that was very fragile with their depth and really couldn't afford to lose good players or significant players. They lost one of their biggest pieces in this Bentley deal. So how does a Godchaw, a guy that you extended, how does a Godchaw, Devon Godchaw step up? Daniel Ukawale, Keon White, that's on the defensive line. Then the guys that will fill in behind them, and a Jelani Tavai, and a Kyle Duggar, and a Jabril Peppers, and a Raekwon McMillan, even an Anthony Jennings. How do they fill into that off-ball linebacker role? And something that jumped out to me, Kyle Duggar has only taken 9 less snaps in the box than Ja'Whaun Bentley this season so far. Wow. I think that's where he should be. I think that's where he is best. And I think he could be a game wrecker in that role. He's so smart. We saw him blow up that bubble screen in their Week 2 loss against the Seahawks. Now, of course, that could be when the snap is taken and DeMarcus Covington going with disguises and he drops back. But nonetheless, Duggar's a guy that's comfortable in the box. Communication-wise, playmaking-wise, I think this is where he needs to step up.
Yeah, and you talk about, the big picture of things is that's the main thing when you talk about this 2024 season. And so you kind of just all these different injuries and, these guys missing time at this point. How long can you be competitive at this point? Could the Patriots go and lose 3 of their next 4 or something like that and really be impacted by this Bentley injury? I think it's possible. I think I do think it's going to be, and we've stressed it, I think it's going to be a huge loss for that defense. And then when you talk about that, if they go out and lose 3 of the next 4, does it make it less likely that Drake Maye? All things kind of come back to that, right? Does it make it less likely that Drake Maye is playing week 12, week 13 if the defense isn't as good as it's looking at this point? So I do think there's, in addition to just the individual absence, there are some kind of big picture sort of takeaways from just this one injury.
Next upcoming games at Jets, Thursday night, at 49ers, 4 o'clock kickoff on Sunday, September 29th. Home against the Dolphins, home against the Texans, then in London facing the Jaguars. The Jets are going to want to come in, run the ball. The 49ers, all they have left is to run the ball with Jordan Mason. But now Deebo Samuel out, but it's basically a 2-man show of Ayuk. Well, they have George Kittle, of course, and Jordan Mason.
While the Dolphins, all those guys.
Even if it's Skylar Thompson, how are you going to do against a run of a Devin Achane, who looked really good through 2 weeks? We'll see if he's healthy. And for a Texans team, we'll see how healthy Joe Mixon is, because he went down on a hip drop tackle and hurt his ankle, tweaked it. But again, the Texans team so skilled on the outside, your worry has to be their quarterback. But all of these teams are willing and will run the ball. Even same thing with the Jaguars, with ETN, and they're set up in their backfield as well with Tank Bigsby. They look so good. How healthy are these teams are? There's just so much that is affected throughout this. Mm-hmm. Let's get in. You want to talk? Well, let's talk Jets on this one now. So we broke down on what the impact of Ja'Whaun Bentley out is, but also on who his replacements could be. When we're looking at this matchup, and this is Thursday night, Jets back at home at MetLife, coming off their first win. Patriots coming off their first loss, back on the road. There's a lot of pressure here. Patriots, they've looked so competitive through 2 weeks, Sean. They have a much better shot than I thought it would be against this Jets team. A Jets team that let the Niners run for 180 yards on them, let the Titans run for 130 yards on them, and now without Jermaine Johnson as he went down with an Achilles injury.
Yeah, and CJ Mosley also kind of dealing with something. So we'll see if he's playing. So I think without a doubt, the Patriots' biggest strength, if you want to go head to head, it's got to be in the run game and in their run game. The Jets have struggled to stop the run. New England is averaging just under 178 yards rushing per game. It's top 5 in the league. The Jets are complete opposite spectrum. They're allowing the 25th most when you go to yards per game. So those injuries, Jermaine Johnson, CJ Mosley, they still have Quinnen Williams. They still have Quincy Williams on that side of the ball as well. But when you think about the Patriots, if the Patriots are going to win, they have to win exactly like they have, I guess, week 1. We're not talking about multiple games here, but in week 1, and we're competitive in week 2. And it's got to be. They
almost won in week 2, so
they were competitive.
Play that way.
Yep.
Eliminate the dumb defensive mistakes in communication. Don't let someone come in free off the left wing on a field goal. Sorry to interrupt, Sean. Keep going.
No, that was it right there.
It's and for Jacoby Brissett, be smarter with the football. He was sacked 3 times. 2 of those I chalk up to coverage sacks, not on the offensive line. But also 2 of those I chalk up to the quarterback, where you have to have that eternal clock. And at times he knew when to flee the pocket, but other times holding on to it too long. And we could say what it is on that 3rd and 9, and he sacks, pushes him back. It's a 48-yard field goal. No one's getting separation downfield out of his receivers. Hunter Henry had a career day, but he had 1 catch in the second half. Jalen Polk, KJ Osborne combined for 3 catches for 19 yards. They were doing this against a very good Seahawks secondary with Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, and Justin Love at safety. Okay, awesome. You know what you have against the Jets? Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, one of the best secondaries again in the game. This D-line stinks right now against the run, as so it seems. I mean, getting pushed around by the 49ers. That's what jumped out to me in both of their games so far was how they were just getting dominated at the line of scrimmage. Well, the Seahawks were dominating at the line of scrimmage. Boye Mafe, right? Byron Murphy, Leonard Williams, making big plays, stopping the run when they needed to. I don't have that faith that this Jets defensive line can. We'll see if they can switch something, but there's something off with them up front, and that's where the Patriots have to take advantage. But, there still is. And I think what the Seattle loss was, Sean, was breaking through of talent is what can win you games in the fourth quarter. Disciplined football, well-coached football also could win you in the fourth, but that could be the separating factor. And that's what happened, where it was all Geno Smith in the second half, and Jacoby Brissett in the passing game was a non-factor. DK Metcalf, JSN, have to have it down, so they pulled through. Tyler Lockett, quiet for regulation, most clutch catch of the game in OT. Things like that. When they have Garrett Wilson, one of the best route runners in the game. Our Christian Gonzalez takes him out. Let's see what a Malachi Corley or Mike Williams can do, or Tyler Conklin over the middle. And again, this is when you'll miss a Ja'Whaun Bentley, a guy that does so much. We can see their tight end step up. And in an offense, can it be multiple? Can they do what they want to? So this is another matchup I see. If this Jets defense was, as we've seen the last 2 seasons, I would be very confident saying the Jets win at home. But because of how bad that defensive line is and what we saw of Antonio Gibson, as long as the Pats between Gibson and Ramondre can get 130, 140 yards on the ground between the two of them, even 120, I'll take. And then you maybe get JaMychal Hasty to step up. Jacoby Brissett scrambling for some yards, but mainly from their backfield, from the running backs to go 120, 130. That can control the game, set up the play action. Where I hold my breath, Sean, is just still this receiving group is not good.
No, I mean, without a doubt, that's you talk about the biggest strength being the run game for the Patriots. I think the biggest advantage for the Jets is the Patriots' lack of passing game. They've struggled to create separation. They struggled to make plays against both the Bengals and the Seahawks. And so I looked this up. 11 catches for 85 yards is how many. That's the wideout production from the Patriots right now. 11 catches for 85 yards. Obviously, a lot of that, it all goes hand in hand. The pass protection hasn't been good. The route running hasn't been great. The separation hasn't been great. So, with all that, I mean, it's without a doubt the biggest advantage that the Jets have. And, it's the toughest secondary that they face. So, we'll have to see how. But when you become so one-dimensional like that, you have to think how are they going to do it? That's
where I don't know, because it's on AVP, it's on the play design, right? And there is a point of when you see Jacoby Brissett holding onto the ball, it is coverage sack, but doing it multiple times, it's no one's getting open downfield. You point out 11 catches, 85 yards. Hunter Henry has 10 for 127 on the season. So Hunter Henry himself is almost outproducing their entire receiving group. That is terrible. And how you get him open, this is an offense. It's all about being on schedule, being on time. It's all about the timing, everything. It's a West Coast offense. Being set up by the run game. Everything has to be faster. You don't have the offensive, and actually they did at times against the Seahawks have the offensive line to let stuff develop downfield, but it's not there. Now, they mentioned, too, the Seahawks, a lot of 2 shell safeties, a lot of deep cover, too, just taking away the big play. You don't have the big play receivers, so stop trying to get the big play if you're Alex Van Pelt. You have to know your personnel, and you have to scheme with them, not against them, and go shorter routes, quicker options. Jacoby Brissett, get the ball out fast. Because something we have to talk about on this too, Sean, was Jacoby Brissett got the absolute stuffing beat out of him. I'm helping out our producer there, Brendan, by not cursing. I don't want him to edit after this. He got the ish beat out of him against the Seahawks. There was a time he was grabbing his ankle knee. There was other time it was his ribs. Got sacked 3 times, hit another 6, I believe. You get the ball out quicker. He won't take these licks.
Mm-hmm.
And as this offensive line and this receiving group is constructed right now, you can't afford to put Drake Maye out there and have his regression and have him take a hit in his development. Make quicker routes, make quicker reads, make quicker plays. It helps out Jacoby because you need him to last. Because at this pace, Sean, I don't see him making it to a week 12. I don't see him making it to a week 9.
And I know we talked about this after the game, but who is like the poster child receiver on the Patriots that you think of after saying all that, right? It's got to be Pop Douglas.
Yep.
You don't have time. You don't have time to block the rushers that are coming. You don't have time to get downfield for the receivers to, extend their routes downfield. You need like short, quick hitting sort of things. You need to get the ball to Pop Douglas. And, that's almost like a public service announcement, right? Like we're pleading to the Patriots at this point to do that. And if they can do that, and Gerard came out, he talked about it after the game on Sunday. He talked about it on Monday too when he was meeting with reporters, took blame for it, said it was on the coaching, said that, he's talked with Alex Van Pelt, and specifically in a question not about Pop Douglas, specifically mentioned Pop Douglas, name dropped Pop Douglas as a player that they need to get involved. So we'll see if that happens. Hopefully it does. And if so, then we might be talking about a completely different offense. If you can get the run game going and, those quick, short passes to move the chains and everything like that, you give yourselves a much better chance to not only compete, but eventually win.
And this is a Patriots team where we saw them win in week 1 with a fumble at the goal line by the Bengals backup tight end, your long snapper forcing a fumble on a punt return. And then in week 2, lose a game, winning time of possession, no turnovers. They're lucky that Ramondre fumble was recovered. Yep. But didn't lose a turnover battle, didn't turn over the ball once, but didn't force any. Low on penalties, ran the ball over 100 yards total, with Gibson and Ramondre waking up. Like when it comes to the basics, they did everything right. Mm-hmm. It's within the margins. It's those minuscule plays. It's those moments. Like a Mike Onwenu choosing to have his worst reps of the game at the worst time when they're trying to drive downfield and either take the lead or avoid overtime or win in overtime, and it's biting them in the face. When you're facing a Quinnen Williams and a Will McDonald and a Solomon Thomas, they will make you pay. When you're matching up with a Sauce Gardner and a DJ Reed, they will make you pay. You're right, though, like on a Pop Douglas. And I'm not going to stand here and act like Pop Douglas is a difference maker and a needle mover, but he's a chain mover. What was Jackson Smith and Jigba, Sean? A chain mover. Yeah. First downs, keeps the offense on the field, and opens things up, gives confidence in your passing game, and gives you an option opposite of Hunter Henry. Because after halftime, the Seahawks took him out of the game, and that's where the passing game disappeared. You need to get the guys involved. And exactly to your point, you're right. Everything quicker, everything faster. Get the ball out faster, shorter routes. Hey, that's your slot receiver at a Liberty University's game.
Yep.
Get him involved.
And I'm also eager to see how Caden Wallace kind of factors into this. Vidarian Lowe, like we mentioned the other day, he left the game. He was on the injury report, the fake injury report that every team must give on a short week, even though they didn't practice. But he was on that. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if it sounds like there's a real chance that Caden Wallace is playing left tackle. So fortunately, no Jermaine Johnson, as we talked about earlier, but really eager to see how that kind of impacts and how he helps or hinders, I guess, either way, the running game that we talked about, as well as the pass protection.
I know I brought it up when we were on Sunday that if you have Caden Wallace starting at left tackle for you, maybe the backup for that at that point is Zachary Thomas, not Zach Thomas, a Hall of Fame linebacker. Zachary Thomas, the offensive lineman. And I believe,
just
Sean,
as good, though.
I have to. They wish they had Zach Thomas right now with Ja'Whaun Bentley out. I believe Zachary Thomas with under 40 career snaps in an NFL game. Zachary Thomas. It's again when we saw Vidarian Lowe to replace a Chukwuekorfor. And Chukwuekorfor absent from the team. And last we heard from Drake Maye saying he's not in the building. He's removed himself from the team. We spoke. It's not about football. He's thinking about things. And even Drake Maye saying, like, are you sure? Are you sure? Which doesn't sound optimistic he'll return. The fragility of their depth. Mm-hmm. Where if a Caden Wallace goes down, then it's going to be a Zachary Thomas. Or the fragility of their depth. If a Mike Onwenu gets banged up, is that going to be a Zachary Thomas? That's why I think it's so big on, we're talking week to week on the Pats, and I'll always look back on their offseason, but you have to.
Oh, without a doubt. Yep.
Okay, you drafted a Jalen Polk, He can't get separation downfield. When you could have taken a left tackle in that spot, 37 overall, you could have kept trading back to the end of the second round and got a Kingsley Suamataia, who I know was benched for the Chiefs, but that's a left tackle at least, an actual left tackle. Things like this is what they need. And then figure out to get that receiver in the third round or just in the offseason. I always go back to the Jonah Williams contract. He signed with the Cardinals, $21.5 million guaranteed over 2 to 3 years, I believe. Cool. You have all this cap space. You're going to roll it over. You need to use some of it right now on a guy like Jonah Williams, who at least is a left tackle. And again, Sean, if you drafted a Kingsley Suamataia, he could have learned under Jonah Williams and you don't have to rush him. And everything looks different overall. But it's hanging this offense and it's hanging this quarterback and it's hanging your rookie out to dry, even though he's not even on the field yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely fair for us to reflect on the offseason pretty much every week. And I would lean more towards like the Jonah Williams thing than the draft. I'm not going to say we haven't. I'm not going to say like Jalen Polk has really done, I guess, hasn't done much of anything, but he hasn't. That draft pick right now, like that's not what I think about when I think about their offseason. I guess if that makes sense, I would think about more like the Jonah Williams, Tyron Smith, those guys, in terms of like not filling that void. But
yeah,
without a doubt, the position they're in right now, especially at left tackle, especially on the offensive line, is because of what they did not do this offseason.
And just looked up Zachary Thomas's Pro Football Reference, 36 career snaps in the NFL.
It's about to get 37 soon.
That is your backup offensive tackle and maybe in another swing tackle, not building up this insurance. All right, we're doing all this quarterback talk. I mean, we got to get into it. The latest on Bryce Young. Mm-hmm. The news broke. I was baffled. Full story on this one. So I'm basically out. I was out at a shoot when this news came out and just see a text, Bryce Young benched. 2 weeks in, it's never happened for a number 1 overall pick to be benched in year 2 after starting week 1 by week 2. Like this has never happened before. The Bryce Young that we saw in Alabama, what's astonishing with this one, Sean, is we saw him light up SEC defenses. We saw him win big games. We saw his IQ and his accuracy shine. And there were moments in his rookie season, but we saw him just look lost through 2 games his sophomore season. And when a guy is 5'10", 200 pounds, so an outlier physically, doesn't have a great arm, isn't crazy athletic, isn't crazy accurate, where you could think of, well, Kyler's 5'10", great arm, insanely athletic. Well, Drew Brees is undersized, really accurate, one of the most accurate passers ever, and he was 6 foot. Russell Wilson, 6 foot, bigger build, can take hits better, and again, more athletic. For him to get benched like this, especially when you bring in Dave Canales, who's supposed to be and is a QB whisperer. Look at Geno Smith in 2022. Look at Baker Mayfield in 2023. For Dave Canales, and it sounds like it was his call to make this, it's something where he was seeing throughout all of training camp that it only took him 2 weeks in the regular season to pull the plug. I'm just astonished to win this bad, this fast. But his situation was not the best for a rookie quarterback, especially one that's a physical outlier as undersized as Bryce Young is.
Yeah, I mean, and I looked it up. He took 62 sacks last year. Carolina had the 27th. They were ranked 27th in pass block grade last year. So just took way too many hits, kind of almost like stopped looking downfield, started feeling the rush, kind of got into that sort of mode, more or less. And it's just, I guess it is a little surprising, but the fact that, the Panthers are now better up front. At this point, they're like top 5 in terms of pass blocking. Yeah,
they invested in Robert Hunt, Damian Lewis in the offseason. Yep. Their guards are good. Their left tackle, it took them a few years to come along, but their offensive, like, that was it. Watching the Saints game and watching his week 2 game too, like, it was clean pockets that he was working with. And he's seeing ghosts. It's what broke Sam Darnold. With time and a clean pocket that he's supposed to step up into, he would rather bail to his left and he would walk into a sack. That's what was crazy.
I was going to say, and that's kind of like the most noteworthy part about his regression this year is that they're really not bad up front. And they have Adam Thielen. They traded for Deontay Johnson. They drafted Xavier Legette. So they have guys around him too. I believe it's Miles Sanders, right? He's a starting running back there.
Yeah,
so,
Miles Sanders still there. They drafted a Jonathan Brooks. Like they have bodies. They have
exactly.
skill.
They have skill players and they have a line up front. So,
and they have this scheme in Dave Canales.
Yep. So to see him take such steps backwards this year, I don't. It's really just eye catching.
It's over the last 2 seasons, quarterbacks with at least 10 starts, he ranked 29th out of 30 in total QBR, 30th in completion percentage, 30th in yards per attempt. Like, it is bad. And it sucks to see because that was a guy who was exciting to watch. A lot of people had high hope about him, obviously being a number 1 overall pick.
Yep.
And this is a Carolina team that traded their 2023 and 2024 first-round picks, their second-rounders in 23 and 25, and DJ Moore to move up to number 1 to get Bryce Young. To bench him this fast, I know the front office. This isn't the front office. This isn't Scott Fitterer. These aren't the guys that drafted him. This isn't the head coach that drafted him. But to bail on it this fast, and Dave Canales with absolute vindication making this decision and owning it, that shows there's a buy-in. And you don't have to be a quarterback whisperer or a huge fan of the NFL. Just watch Bryce Young and you see someone that has no confidence in the pocket, doesn't want to be there, and is looking for the quickest out. And Sean, I think the biggest thing too, like we can go all day talking about this. This is why I say take your time with Drake Maye.
Without a doubt.
You mentioned it. Bryce Young was sacked 62 times his rookie season. He's been sacked 6 times so far this season. His last loss, their loss to the Chargers, not a single sack was credited to his offensive line. It was on him. It was on him, Bryce Young. If Drake Maye regresses and he turns into a quarterback that is first read or go, or just bolt as quick as possible, or start seeing ghosts, that's what you get. That's when he becomes a Malik Willis or a Bryce Young or a Sam Darnold. And when you pick Drake Maye, you do not draft Drake Maye to win games in 2024 in year 1. You draft Drake Maye for him to be your quarterback 8, 10, 15 years down the line.
Yeah, and we just talked so much about the offensive line in front of Bryce Young as a rookie. It would be more or less the exact same thing if Drake Maye was playing right now. I mean, the Patriots rank exactly where the Panthers did last year when it comes to, those advanced stats in terms of the offensive line. So it is like, it's difficult from, we're sitting in New England, we're, covering the Patriots and everything like that. It's difficult to like hear this news and not think about Drake Maye. And it serves as that cautionary tale. Like, this is why the Patriots brought in a veteran. This is why they've went through the process like they have. And it's because they don't want this, top draft pick to turn out, similar to Bryce Young at this point. And it has everything to do with the situation around him. Bryce Young's situation now is fine, but it wasn't last year. I mean, he was playing behind a terrible offensive line. He didn't have the same, he didn't have Deontay Johnson. He didn't have Xavier Legette, so the Carolina has done such, they've made pretty big strides, I guess, in terms of what's around him this year. And he didn't have that last year. And so we're kind of in a similar spot right now with Drake Maye that he doesn't have all that. He doesn't have a great offensive line. Maybe it'll be better next year. Yeah. Hopefully it will be better next year. You go out, you draft a franchise left tackle and, bring in another pass catcher or something like that. So at this point, it's like, it just serves as such a reminder, I think, to the Patriots and Patriots fans, like, this is why we're going about this the way we are.
And what's important, too, is that when you're looking downfield, if you have a rookie quarterback, you need to be in the NFL. You need to be able to throw guys open and make anticipatory throws. But you also need your receivers to get separation. That is something that is so important. And Jalen Polk can become that guy, especially over the middle, which is where Drake Maye loves to throw the football and the intermediate to deep over the middle of the field. And that's what it's all about of being an NFL quarterback, is throwing between the hash marks. But if they're not getting separation downfield and they're not blocking for you, it's going to be panic and scramble mode all the time. I know at times Jacoby Brissett holds on to the ball too long, but at times he's made plays with his legs. But Drake Maye, what his upside is his athleticism. It's his arm. It's him as an actual quarterback. You cleaned up the feet. You fixed him. From a guy that would be standing straight up, have a really small base, and then have to reload everything to make a throw. No. In the NFL, it's all about timing. It's 1, 2, 3, hitch, go. It's 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, 5, hitch, throw. It's not a stand straight up. You're going to have time to squat back down, get your base wide, and let it rip. The progress they made with Drake Maye is so important. You can't let it regress because you don't have receivers that can get open, and you don't have an offensive line that can block for him. Going through, I put this together. I was just like curious one night, and I was looking up the age of, I was looking at top 3 picks that are 22 or younger when making their first start, right? Caleb Williams is going to turn 23 in November. Jaden Daniels is 23. Drake Maye is 22 right now. In 2023, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, 1-2. We're 22. Bryce Young was making his first start. CJ Stroud's 21. Bryce Young, I don't see him bouncing back from this, Sean. You could put him as a bust. Trevor Lawrence, 22. Zach Wilson, 22. 1-2 pick. Then Trey Lance, 3rd. Wilson, Lance, bust. Joe Burrow worked out at 1. Tua's picked 5th overall. He's not a bust because of his ability. We don't know what he's going to be, and we don't know what his future is. Herbert was taken 6th overall, 22 making his first start, but had 44 games played in college under his belt. Then you go into the Bakers. Didn't work out with the Browns. Even after winning a playoff game, they said, we want Deshaun Watson. That's their fault. Darnold, 2018, bust, 3rd overall pick. Trubisky, 2017, number 2 overall pick. 23 making his first start, bust. Jared Goff, a bust for the Rams. Carson Wentz, a bust for the Eagles. But he was an MVP before he tore his ACL. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, bust. I cut myself off at 2015 for my sanity. You have a Drake Maye with 30 games played under his belt in college, would be 22 making his first NFL start. Caleb Williams, 37 games played. Jaden Daniels, 55 games played. CJ Stroud, 25 games played. Again, he is an anomaly. He's an exception. Trevor Lawrence, 40 games played. He worked out. Joe Burrow, 28 games played. So less experience than Drake Maye, but came in more refined as a prospect than Drake Maye. And we know Joe Burrow struggled. He wasn't great his first year in LSU. That's second year. But also with Justin Jefferson, with Jamar Chase, with all that NFL talent. And say what you want. Joe Burrow with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Trevor Lawrence. Now with Brian Thomas Jr., with BTJ, Sean. They bring him in. They give him these weapons. It's situation. You need blockers. You need receivers that can get open. The Panthers tried to get that for Bryce Young, but Bryce Young was broken by the time they finally got the support he needed. That's what stands out to me with this, and that's not what you want to happen with Drake Maye.
Yeah, you got a lot of time on your hands, George.
It was one night, bro. Probably poured myself a glass of Johnny Walker Black, too. It was probably like an off day, but we love ball. That's why we host right. Foxboro Rush. We love ball so much. We're going to talk about the worst teams in the NFL. So there are many 0-2 teams. Ravens, Rams, Bengals, Broncos, Colts, Panthers, Giants, Jaguars, Titans. All of them are 0-2. Who's the best 0-2 football team in the NFL? Because there are good teams. Ravens, Bengals, Jaguars, Rams are who jump off the paper to me. But who do you think's the best?
I got to go with the Ravens.
Yeah.
I just think, one, they lost the season opener to the Chiefs. So I think that kind of maybe their losses should be counted as less losses almost in that sense. But no, so they lost to the Chiefs. Kind of a stunner, I guess, in week 2 against Las Vegas. Didn't expect to see them drop that one as well. But I just think when you look at everything, you're not used to seeing this, but they're still 6th best run defense, 5th best run offense. They have Lamar Jackson. They have Derrick Henry.
They have Zay Flowers.
They're better than average.
They have Kyle Hamilton.
Is something a lot of these teams cannot say on this list. And I was looking at like the Vegas odds, because when I'm thinking about this team, I'm thinking of like who is the team that has the best chance to go to the playoffs. And Vegas agreed with me. They went with the Ravens and the Bengals. The Rams, I thought was pretty questionable. Pretty much 4-1 to see the Rams make the playoffs. I know they have a lot of injuries and things, but a little bit of a surprise to see that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we're here in 6 weeks at this point and the Ravens are 4-2. I don't know what their schedule looks like right now.
Let me help you out here.
Off the top of my head, but
filibuster a little bit.
That's right.
Help me out. You talk, Sean.
But just they're still the favorite.
Oh, they're going to get a win week 3. They're in Dallas.
Oh, that's right then. Okay.
It took me 39 minutes to dump on your Cowboys. That's my new record.
That's
At Dallas. That's going to be hard, though. Like,
will it?
not actually joking. How you think they're that bad?
The Cowboys?
Yeah.
I mean, they just got absolutely pantsed.
I know.
The game was over like 6 minutes into the game.
Next episode, Brendan, our producer, I'm shouting you out. Let's go through the best 2-0 teams, or by then, let's see who's still undefeated. Because the Saints are insane.
Yeah.
Like, shout out to Clint Kubiak. I mean, he's the savior of the day.
They
At
also
Dallas,
played the Panthers week 1.
At Dallas, home against Buffalo. At Cincinnati versus Washington. Washington's defense is terrible. They'll win that.
Yep.
At Cincinnati, that'll be tough. That's a tough stretch. I know they got pantsed, but like it's still the Cowboys. It's Micah Parsons. Buffalo finds ways to win. Cincinnati's a tough matchup. You say to be 4-2. They're 0-2 right now.
That might be a 3-3.
I'm going 2-4.
Wow.
At Dallas versus Washington are the wins for me.
Okay.
That was bad, that loss to the Raiders. But you're right, the talent's there. And go back to week 1, we'd have a completely different conversation where if Lamar Jackson made the right read and intended his pass for a wide open Zay Flowers, they'd be in, right?
Yeah.
Rams is a bad injury luck. Cooper Kupp sprained ankle on the IR. Puka Nacua knee injury on the IR. Avila and Noteboom both hurt in week 1, and their backup left tackle literally didn't know you can use your arms to block. Like, that's what they were dealing with. I'll go Bengals. I want to go Rams, but with these injuries and how it could go sideways, yes, they were asleep in week 1. They should have beat the Chiefs. If their defensive back gets there a second later on that intended pass, then they win that game. I hate that, like, the refs. Yes, the Chiefs get favorable calls. They do. Especially the right tackle jumping the snap every play. That's insane. That was defensive pass interference.
Yep.
It was a bang-bang play, but he got there before the ball arrived. Get over it, Cincinnati fans. Get over it, NFL fans. That was a right call by the refs. But I still go Bengals. They went 0-2 last season to start, made it to the playoffs. Only 11% of teams in the history of the NFL have started 0-2 and made it to the postseason. The Ravens and the Bengals can be a part of that 11%.
And I feel like a slow start from the Bengals, no doubt. I think that Joe Burrow looked better in week 2. I will say, like, the Jamar Chase, like, everything that's just kind of going on with him, it's just kind of, it's like thrown me off a little bit. I saw the thing with the penalty that he got, berating an official, and, he got that penalty. He talked the other day about how, a lot of discontent about his contract, and said that a lot of things are going on with that. So I think it's kind of, there's some weird stuff going on with the Bengals right now that I think Joe Burrow is good enough that he will ultimately get the team back to the playoffs, but I definitely don't feel as strongly about that team as I think I did, entering the year. That is that too, and the run defense still looks bad. And we saw like Yossi Vosh show up, but it was like 2 targets right in the end zone. There has to be more playmaking. It's that Joe Burrow bump they get, but how do they deal with these distractions? The Panthers, I'm interested what their boost is with Andy Dalton. Yep. Because a lot of people want to say, and their defense is still bad, I think the Broncos are the worst team on this list. Out of the rest, Broncos, Colts, Panthers, Giants, Jaguars, Titans. Titans are bad because Will Levis doesn't know how to play quarterback. Broncos are bad because Bo Nix can't play quarterback, and that roster still stinks. The Giants' offensive line has sorted itself out, and if they had a kicker, they wouldn't be on this list. But that defense is still trying to figure itself out with a lot of talent on the defensive line and good play in the secondary, especially from the rookie safety out of Minnesota. They're still trying to learn, but I think Broncos or Titans. I would say Broncos. I think Broncos are the worst team on this list. I'm also eager to see how the Panthers, that new quarterback lift sort of thing. I feel like it's like when a head coach gets fired, like the team just goes out and win the next game. I've been betting against the Panthers in a Survivor League the last 2 weeks, and I was kind of annoyed to see that Bryce Young was replaced, because now I don't know if I feel as confident going against him. Target the Broncos. I guess that's my advice for you. Go Broncos. And then it'll work out in your favor on that end, because I just think Bo Nix is terrible. They have no receivers, and I don't see them making it quick. I'm going to go fast on this one. Producer's going to kill me. Broncos, who do you have? Denver at Tampa Bay. Go Broncos. Pick Tampa. Okay. You could burn them early. I mean, it's a good team, but I would say pick Tampa, especially at home, and the way Baker Mayfield's playing, coming off that win over the Lions. Tampa 2-0. I appreciate that, George. That's big time. He's Sean McGuire. Got you, Sean. I'm George Balekji. This is Foxboro Rush. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure to like, subscribe, download, rate, review wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime. If you're watching on Nesson's YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Same thing with Twitch as well.
Keep in mind, we'll have a later episode. It'll still drop Friday morning, but the next episode of Rush will be out right after that Thursday night football game. We'll be up till like 2 a.m. for that one. So please help us out and make it worth it by listening. That'll be Friday's episode. Have a good one, everyone. We'll see you next time.